Today, we are diving into some of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. We're looking at these ancient anomalies that they defy any easy explanation, and they really force us to question the story that we've all been told about our own past.
We usually think of history as this very neat, tidy line. Humanity starts out with simple tools, we discover fire, we invent the wheel, and it's this slow, steady climb to where we are today. It's a story that makes sense. But what if that straight line isn't so straight after all? What if it has some really strange detours? And what if there are things out there, artifacts, entire structures, so advanced that they seem like they're from the future, not the distant past? Let's kick things off with a mystery of just impossible engineering. Okay, so our first stop is a place called Baalbek in Lebanon. It's home to some of the most ridiculously large stones ever moved by supposedly human hands. Just look at this number. 1,650 tons. That is the weight of the biggest quarried stone block they've found there. To give you some perspective, that's like trying to move 250 full-grown African elephants all at once. How in the world did an ancient culture pull that off? So the heart of this whole mystery is something called the trilithon. It's these three colossal 800-ton blocks that make up part of a temple foundation. Each one of these blocks is about the size of a modern Boeing airliner. And what's even crazier? The biggest stones weren't even the ones they used. They're still sitting there, unfinished, in the quarry. Now the Romans, they came along and built their famous Temple of Jupiter right on top of this platform. But the platform itself, it seems to be much, much older. And this is where the conventional story just completely falls apart. Look at the technology gap. We all know the Romans were brilliant engineers, right? But their absolute best cranes could lift maybe 100 tons on a good day. The stones at Baalbek are over 10 times heavier than that. There is zero historical record, nothing, of any machine from that time or for centuries after that could even begin to handle that kind of weight. So the math just doesn't add up. It's not even close. And this has led a lot of researchers to a pretty startling conclusion. The Romans didn't build this foundation. They just built on top of it. It was inherited from a much older and maybe far more advanced lost civilization. Okay, so from impossible structures, let's switch gears to impossible knowledge. We're gonna look at a map that, frankly, just shouldn't exist. All right, the year is 1513. An Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis compiles a map of the world. Pretty standard stuff for the age of discovery, you'd think, right? Except his map seems to show the continent of Antarctica, a full 300 years before it was officially discovered. But here's where it gets really strange. It's all in the details. Not only is the coastline of Antarctica there, it's shown without its massive ice sheet. I mean, that's a view no human has seen for thousands and thousands of years. The map is already shockingly accurate for the known world at the time, but Piri Reis himself said, hey, this wasn't all me. He admitted he compiled it from more than 20 much older source maps. And that, of course, leads us to the million-dollar question. If Piri Reis was just putting the pieces together, who made the original maps? Who had the technology to accurately chart the entire globe? And how did they know what Antarctica looked like before it was buried under miles of ice? So for our final mystery, we're going to turn to something that we know is real, we know exactly where it is, but it's so dangerous and so fragile that it's been deliberately left completely sealed off from the world. For over 2,200 years, the final resting place of China's very first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, has been completely untouched. We all know about his incredible terracotta army, but his actual tomb, which is right nearby, is a total mystery. Ancient historians like Sima Qian, writing way back around 100 BC, described an unbelievable underground palace, a perfect replica of the emperor's entire kingdom. He wrote about a ceiling filled with pearls to look like the night sky, and, most alarmingly, rivers of liquid mercury that were built to flow for all of eternity. And here's the thing, this isn't just some legend. Modern surveys of the soil all around the tomb have found insanely high concentrations of mercury, perfectly matching those ancient descriptions. We know there's a massive man-made structure down there, but the central chamber itself, the heart of the mystery, no modern person has ever laid eyes on it. So you have to be asking, why don't we just open it? Well, the reasons are actually pretty compelling. First, preservation. The moment they opened the pits with the terracotta army, the vibrant paint on them just flaked off and turned to dust in minutes. Anything fragile inside that tomb, ancient silks, paper, artwork, it could be destroyed instantly. Second,
that mercury, it's not just a story, it's a real lethal environmental nightmare waiting to happen. And finally, and this is a big one, there are profound cultural and spiritual reasons. You just don't disturb the emperor's final resting place. So, we've got impossible construction, impossible knowledge, and a tomb that's impossible to open. What does this all mean when you put it all together?
What's becoming pretty clear is that these aren't just one-off historical oddities, right? They're not just fun little puzzles to think about. They actually form a pattern of really advanced engineering, of sophisticated global knowledge, of this monumental ambition that just doesn't fit into that neat, tidy, linear story of history we're so used to hearing. And in the end, these mysteries, they don't really represent a failure of history. I think they represent an incredible opportunity. They suggest that our past isn't a finished story, not by a long shot. There are missing chapters out there, maybe even entire volumes just waiting to be found. And that just leaves us with one last, really fascinating thought. If these are the mysteries we know about, how many more are still out there? Lying hidden, sleeping beneath the deserts, the oceans, the jungles of the world, just holding on to secrets that could completely rewrite the story of who we are?